My name is Pam Batchelor, and I'm with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction on the Digital Teaching and Learning team. I'm excited to talk to you today about how you can curate resources on GoOpenNC. GoOpenNC is our statewide platform for educators to find, create, and collaborate standards-aligned instructional resources that are openly licensed. To get started, we're going to need to visit the platform. To go to the platform, there are two methods. You can either log into the NC Ed Cloud and look for the North Carolina GoOpenNC icon on your tray and click on that, or you can open a browser tab and enter the URL in your URL bar. Our URL is goopenc.oercommons.org. The first thing to check when you go to the platform is to make sure you're signed in. On the top right corner of the navigation bar, you should see a little avatar, and if you click on it, it should say My Items, Groups, or Hubs, or it may say Sign In. If it says Sign In, please go ahead and take a moment to sign in with your NC Ed Cloud credentials. Just as a reminder, GoOpenNC is free for all North Carolina public school educators, and we must log in using your NC Ed Cloud credentials. Once we're logged in, we're really going to take a minute to look at how we can curate resources on the platform. So curating may mean different things to different people depending on your role. For this webinar, we're going to be talking about how I can curate resources into the My Items section, as well as how we can curate resources into our groups. So these are very valuable features that'll be great for saving resources and collaborating with our staff members, especially if there's any school library or media coordinators listening. Curating resources on GoOpenNC is a great way to share new resources with your staff, as well as to highlight resources to look at within a PLC conversation as we look at the lens of quality and equity. To get started, I'm just going to go ahead and do a simple search on the platform. There's a few different ways you can search for resources on the platform. You can, of course, use the main search here on the platform, or on the navigation bar on the top. You can always click on the magnifying glass, and that's going to allow you to search for resources in the platform no matter what part of the platform you're currently looking at. So I'm just going to do a quick search in the center here, and we're going to look for writing, and I'm going to go ahead and select a subject area for English Language Arts, and maybe I'm going to go ahead and look for 7th grade, and then click search. And so with that writing resources, I can see I have 1,215 resources. That's a little too many resources that I want to look at, so I'm going to pull up our standards and filter them by standard. So when we go over here on the left side with our filters, education standards, now with that list, we're going to make sure that we go down here and look for North Carolina standards. Now, one thing to note is that we do have extended standards as well as our essential standards. So just make sure that you're looking at the essential standards, which for English Language Arts is up here at the top, and that you're not looking at extended standards unless you are teaching the extended curriculum. Alright, so Language Arts standards, and then our drop down, I'm going to go back to that 7th grade level, and I'm going to go down to writing, and maybe I'm going to look for research. Alright, so now instead of looking at 1,200 resources, I'm only looking at 100. I can further sort my search by looking for relevance, or I can also look for rating, which is what resources have the highest rating, and then I can also look for the most recently added resources on GoOpenNC. So it just depends on what your preference is for how you want to look at your search results. I'm going to go back and go to ratings, and I noticed there was a couple of resources here about learning clubs. Anne Frank, a writer. That one looks interesting. I'm going to click on this. and I see that I have a little bit of information about this resource, so I can go ahead and start looking at it. I can see the licensing of the resource as well as a little description of it, the grade levels. Over here on the right side, I can see the standards that this particular resource is aligned to. I can also look at our quality review rubric. This particular resource has been reviewed by one user. And so I can also go in here and see the comments that people have made into this resource. All right. So if I wanted to look at this resource later on and save it, the first thing we're going to talk about is just simply saving to my items. So whenever I'm looking at a resource, there's this save button. If I go ahead and click on it, I can see all the groups that I belong to, and since I'm an administrator of Go Open and See, I belong to a lot of them. But if I keep scrolling down, I can also see folders. And so I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm just going to call this my ELA folder. And so when you create a folder, it's going to automatically save this resource into this folder. So that's a nice little time saving habit there. All right, and so now if I go back under save, I can see under my items, I can see that new folder that I just made. And so now if I click on my profile picture and I go under that my items, I can now see that ELA folder with that one resource there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that all over again, but with another topic area. So first, I'm just going to use that magnifying glass up at the top of the page to do another search. Maybe this time I'm going to look for planet. Let's do phases of the moon. Okay, and so we're going to go down here. We're going to look for science, and maybe I'm looking for elementary. All right, and so now I have 39 results here for looking at moon phases. Again, I can go back in and filter those. I can go in and add the standards if I wanted to. So we're going to look at this resource here that is looking at the moon phases, and I'm going to go ahead and save this again, and instead of saving it to my ELA folder, I'm going to create a new folder. And so I'm going to say this is elementary science. And again, if I go back under my items, I should see my new folder with my saved resource. Okay, so very simply you can look at saving resources to specific folders. I could also create different folders and subfolders. So maybe under this ELA folder, I'm going to add a subfolder and I'm going to call it writing. And I can actually now save items to subfolders. So whether you want to think about a folder system that makes sense to you, whether it's the courses you teach and then maybe your units underneath or particular standards, you cannot make more than 2 levels of folders. So you just have your main folder and your subfolders. You can't have a 3rd level of folders on Go Open and See. All right, another way to do the same thing I just shared, we can go in here and look for another search. So maybe this time we're looking at World Dance. All right, and so right here from the search page, maybe I'm just doing a quick search. I'm not really sure. I'm going to come back later and look at these different dances. You notice there's those check marks next to each resource. I just checked a few of them and now I have that save button. And so again, I can go in here and put them in my folder. I'm going to create a new folder that's just called items to review. And now those 3 items automatically went into my folder. All right, so 3 items right there. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and this is all for individual, right? So everything I've done so far in this demonstration has been visible only to me, right? I am the only one that sees my folders and my items. But now let's take it up a notch and say that I'm going to look at curating items for a group, right? So a group, anyone can create a group in Go Open and See. So you can create a group for your PLC, you could create a group for your grade level, a group for your school, however it makes sense to you and you want to connect with educators, you can do that. I do just ask that before you go off and create groups that you search first. So we're going to go under groups and we're going to go to See All Groups. And so this is where that little search feature is. So maybe if I wanted to look for, middle school, let's just see what pops up there, right? So maybe we have, here's a middle school science, right? So if I wanted to go ahead and add resources to this folder, before you create a group for middle school science, I would ask you to check out the group that's already there and make sure that you're not just creating groups that have already been created. We don't want to have a bunch of orphan groups or non-active groups on Go Open. So I'm going to go ahead and look for a group, and I'm just going to do the sandbox. So we do have this sandbox group, which is an open group, and it's just to play around with the group features. So if you're looking at doing this for maybe your school and you're like, I'm not sure yet, I want to, kind of test out how the groups work and Go Open and See, you are welcome to find the sandbox group and you would say join this group, but I'm already a member of the group, so you wouldn't have to, you don't see the join button. All right, so let's look under group resources. So every group in Go Open and See has this group resources where you can sit here and create folders, right? So maybe I'm gonna go ahead and put in folders here. So maybe this is 4th grade math. I want to curate some resources for them, add a subfolder, and maybe I'm gonna put fractions. Multiplication, rounding. All right, so I've got some folders here. So there are empty folders right now, but in just a second, I'm gonna go back and do that same search feature. So maybe this time I'm gonna leave the keyword blank, but I'm gonna go down here to math and that education level, upper primary, and search. And then over here with the standards is where I'm going to drill down into those North Carolina math standards, which are down there. And we're going to go into grade 4, and maybe I'm going to look into fractions first. And so now I have 320 resources. Again, maybe I'm going to sort them by how they're rated on the platform. And I'm just going to pick a few of these. And again, use that save button. And now I'm going to go under my groups. So that was the sandbox group. And here's my folders that I've created here. So I'm going to click on that fractions folder. And now I've saved 4 items. And so if I go under my groups, and here's the sandbox group, I can see that under that 4th grade math folder, there's now those 4 resources that have been saved there. And any member of the group, so there's 71 members in this particular group, would be able to see those resources and the folders that I've set up. So we can all see them, we can all contribute to them. So maybe they have some favorite resources that they use for some of those other topics that I've listed. They can add those to that folder, and we can really work collaboratively to pull together resources for particular topics or grade levels, or however it best works for you. So that is how you can quickly curate items within a group setting. And then I just wanted to speak for a moment before we leave groups, talking about contributing to the group. All right, so let's say I'm a member of a group and I'm curating resources for a group from my school. And maybe I have a really wonderful resource on, plagiarism, or maybe I have a resource on the research process. I can actually go ahead and contribute that resource to this group right here from either submitting from the web or open author. So submitting from the web means that I know of a great resource that's openly licensed that's not mine. So maybe I know that there's an openly licensed research model process out there. If you go to submit from the web, it asks you a series of questions to describe the resource and include the link to it, and then it will be submitted just to the group. Or open author, those are for the resources that you have created, and that you have, maybe living on your Google Drive somewhere or on your Microsoft OneDrive. There are quick import buttons from both Google Docs and Microsoft Word. So if you already have a lesson plan or a rubric or a resource that you would like to share to a group, you can use that open author. And in fact, our discussion next time will be on open author and how to create resources. So just know that's coming soon, but that is there. So if you already have resources created that you'd like to share with a group, feel free to do those as well. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk a little bit about are our keywords. And this is another way to curate resources on Go Open and See. So we have keyword tags on every resource in Go Open and See. So I'm going to just look in here and I'm going to look for STEM. All right, and maybe I'm again doing that rating search. All right, so here is a Harvest of Fear. All right, and so if we look at the tags down here, you can notice that there's several tags, and we can also add a new tag to a resource. So let's pretend that we are looking for items that we want to curate and add to a collection. Right, so we can make our own collections and Go Open and See using tags. So anytime I click on this tag, let's say agriculture, I can see the other resources that have the same tag. So a tag is really versatile because I can then go and use this search up here and actually create a collection. Now, a note about that, I can create collections as a Go Open and See administrator. You as a general user cannot. So if you build a keyword tag, and maybe let's say you curate 25, 30 resources, and you would like me to create a collection of those resources, I'm happy to do so. I'll share my email information at the end of this video, and you are welcome to email me and just let me know what tag that you have created in the resources, and I'm happy to create a collection for you, and then you can just give a link to a collection. So let me show you an example, and then we'll walk through the process of how you would think about a tag and add a tag. So if we go under to the Discover in our navigation for Go Open and See and go to Collections. you can see these are different resources, and down at the bottom, these are some of the custom collections that have been made by public school unit users. So we have, for example, the STEM collection, and so this has 78 resources. And I'm just going to click on one, and you'll notice down here in the tags it has that STEM, which brings us back to the collection. Alright, so if I go back into Go Open and See, and again I'm just going to put in STEM. Alright, and so here's a text-based inquiry template for STEM lessons. And I notice it does have the tag already in it, so we're good. But some of these don't have the STEM. So let me look at this one. Right, and so this one also does. But if I wanted to create my own collection of maybe resources for just my PSU, be thinking about a short phrase. It can be more than one word that you would like to start adding to different items to build a collection, right? So let's go back to our idea of maybe I'm going to look for resources on let's go back and do rounding. I think that was one of the ones I didn't find any resources for yet. Alright, and so I've just typed in rounding, and then maybe I'm going to go into our standards. I'm going to go down to the math standards. I think it was 4th grade. Alright, so here's some 4th grade. Alright, here's rounding decimals with place value. Alright, and I'm just going to go down here, and where it says add new tag, I'm just going to put rounding. Alright, now there's that tag, and I can see that there's already some other resources when I clicked on it that had that rounding tag. So now with that URL at the top, I can, as an administrator, go in and go under our collections and create a collection for rounding resources. So the nice thing about using tags is as a curator, you can go in, and once you've started using your custom tag that you're going to put on resources, you can just share this URL at the top that has your keyword and what it is. And so that way, all you have to do is share this link up here, and users would be able to continue to find your collection of resources even as you continue to add to it. So, you know, if we make a tag that says your district's name, and maybe, you know, I would suggest maybe your initials, and then maybe, you know, something about the collection. So is it elementary resources? Is it high school resources? Is it middle school? Is it math? Is it social studies? You know, what are you creating a collection about? And try to abbreviate that into a short phrase or one word if you can. And then as you build that collection, just share the link to the collection of resources, and that way, you know, folks get that personalized view of just the resources that you have curated specifically for the needs of your students and staff. So please let me know if there are any questions you have about curating, but I wanted to show you both how you can curate items as an individual into your folders, as a group member into groups folders, and then also this concept of tagging to build a content collection, and how you can share the link to that tag, and then all the resources that have that tag will show for the user. So you can actually go in there and create I would ask you to go ahead and like STEM, is a very highly used keyword. I would encourage you, when you're thinking of a keyword for a tag, to be kind of creative. So things like NC Zoo is one of the collections that we just built with resources from the North Carolina Zoo. So that keyword, NC Zoo is pretty specific. That's what it is, and it's unique. Whereas something generic like STEM or arts ed or something like that would likely to be confused by different users and also different searches, because people might put in that keyword for their collection as well. So a good tag is short, but it's unique. So in this video, we have talked about how to save items as an individual, how to curate and save items within a group, and then also this concept of keyword tags and how to create your own collections using keyword tags on Go Open and See. I hope this video has been helpful for you, and I can't wait to see your responses on our discussion board about how you're going to be curating items depending on your role. So whether you're a school library and media coordinator and you're looking at curating resources for your staff, if you're a district level curriculum coach, and maybe how you're going to look at building some district collections, as a classroom teacher, if you're going to be building out folders and different units, or if you're going to go by standards. I'm super excited to dive into our conversation, and please reach out to me if you have any questions via email, and I'll be happy to help. Thank you so much.